Another day, another episode of Hopstart. Now, you might think you know all about careers, but let us help you out by introducing you to EnglishHelper. It's a platform that helps people learn English in public schools. We also interviewed a very famous Bharatanatyam dancer. So get your arts fix, get your, English fix right here on Hopstart.
Hello, I'm Sanjay Gupta. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of EnglishHelper, a company that helps people learn English using technology.
Thank you so much, Sanjay sir, for taking time out of your day to let us interview you. So, briefly, what is EnglishHelper?
EnglishHelper is a company that we've set up mainly for the purpose of using technology for helping people learn English. And our focus significantly is people who come from low-income backgrounds. We work with public schools, government schools, and with youth who are working age or adults who are working. Again, people who've had difficulty in accessing quality education for the most part.
So, is your technology supposed to aid teachers or replace them?
Well, it depends on the program. For the school program, we actually help teachers become much more effective in the classroom.
Okay.
And for the program that is meant for youth or young adults, it's a blended program where they learn on their own and they also learn with teachers who call in remotely using a video platform.
Okay, and it must be really interesting creating, a platform where English is being taught, especially because access to English in this country isn't that great. But how exactly did you make the platform? Did you take teachers' help? How did you decide what content should go in this platform? What comes first?
Well, we used basic principles.
Okay.
The first basic principles we used relate to fairly deep research into how the brain learns language, which is an arbitrary human creation. So the brain is not really developed or biologically evolved for learning languages.
Yeah.
It has to train itself to learn languages. So we use insights from that research. And the second, we went into the basics of change management.
Okay.
So when we go into a classroom, while there may be temptations to bring in a lot of new content, we avoid that temptation. We just use the textbook and we help teachers teach that textbook, and so they're happy because they're covering syllabus, and educators overall are happy because we are aligned with the curriculum.
So your platform aids teachers in helping them teach English. Do you have workshops to get the teachers attuned to your platform, or is there some other way that they use the platform?
Well, fundamentally, you have to understand the goal. The goal here is to solve a massive problem. We have more than 1 million government schools in this country, and almost 60% of the 260 million students who go to school go to these government schools. And by all accounts, the education system, our public education system, is broken. A large number of these students cannot read textbooks which are of their grade. So our program is designed for scale. We started 5-6 years ago with 100 schools, and now this year we will close with about 100,000 schools in the program.
Wow.
And therefore, all our methods are about speed, are about efficiency, about light-footedness. So while training is an essential part of any change, most of the training that we provide is fairly easy and is delivered virtually.
So since you work a lot with government schools, are the central powers really eager to help you out, or do they resist the change that you're bringing in?
I think working with government is both exciting as well as challenging, because any kind of substantial reform of education in this country cannot be without the government playing a critical role. Having said that, what we do is follow the path of least resistance and greatest opportunity. So for example, an initial pilot was launched in Maharashtra state where we covered 4,000 schools. That pilot was very successful, and thankfully that was recognized by the government of Maharashtra, and we now have expanded in Maharashtra to implement the program in 65,000 schools.
Wow.
This will benefit 15 million students and effectively touch over 200,000 teachers.
Okay.
That's one example. We have multiple examples of states where governments are coming forward to pay for the program. And that to us is really an endorsement from governments, not just one government, of their belief and desire to propagate something which is inherently new and it's technological.
That's really interesting because, I mean, I assumed it would be very hard to work with the government. I'm really glad that it's gotten some results. But let's say, what is some of the hardest challenges you faced in developing a platform like this, or maybe making it so easily accessible to so many people? What's been probably your biggest challenge in this?
I think there are one or two challenges that are noteworthy. The number one challenge is to develop belief, to create credibility. So our approach towards that was to first build belief in ourselves. We ran an initial pilot of 100 schools, as I had mentioned. We then expanded that pilot in partnership with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, to cover 1 million students. We made that very visible. We had independent evaluation of the students' performance, their improvement. And when all of that was very clear and evident, we brought in a number of other stakeholders that gave credibility to the program, not just being about us, but from us, but about the students.
About the students,
And as a result, that has given us a fair amount of new momentum. That said, we work with the public system, and the public system has its own ways of imbibing something that is new. It has its own ways of accepting something that is different. And I think that those are the biggest challenges. And my sense is that as we go forward with greater involvement of other stakeholders, we should be successful.
It's really interesting. So just to conclude, I want to ask you, because now we see a lot of private players working with governments, be it in policy, be it even in medicine, just any kind of third-party private players working with the government to help government services. Any advice you'd have to people who are also trying to work with the government in the way that you've done it so successfully?
Well, the first advice is that one has to be very patient, one has to be very persevering, and must be very passionate about the end objective. Working with the government system is difficult, but it's not impossible. Working with the government system is both challenging and very rewarding. So one of the things we have done is recognize who we are, what we are good at, and form partnerships with others who are good at other kinds of capabilities. So with NGOs or with other for-profit education companies, and created a coalition that has become the way we think we can go forward.
Okay, that's really interesting. And finally, any advice to people who want to work with EnglishHelper?
Well, you've got to come here with passion, you've got to come here with belief, and you've got to come here with a very strong and unwavering desire to do the right thing for the customer. And if you have those qualities, you're welcome.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Ajay, for your time. Stay tuned, because after the break, we have more on Hopstart.
2, 1.
Hi, I'm Priya Venkataraman, Bharatanatyam dancer, teacher and choreographer.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time out of your day and letting us interview you. So, ma'am, when did your Bharatanatyam journey start, and how did it start?
It started nearly 40 years ago, and I was very young then. And just like a typical South Indian family, in Delhi, they would send their daughters especially for some sort of music and dance classes. So that's how I actually started. There was a teacher in our neighborhood who started training me, Srimati Malti Gupta. And I started very young. I was about 7 years old. And music and dance was a really intrinsic part of our daily lives.
That's really nice. And at what point did you decide this is something that you want to do professionally? Like, was that a hard decision to come to, or did you always know this is exactly what you want to do?
No, I think just like any other child, I was very unclear about what I was going to do professionally. Perhaps till I was in high school. Class 11 and 12, because at that point I was training with Guru Saroja Vaidyanathan ji, and she gave us plenty of performance opportunities. And I think that actually inspired us to perform more and perhaps look at it in terms of a career alternative.
So when you decided, okay, this is what I want my career to look like, was it hard to maybe convince your parents, or were they more than on board? Like
Oh
something
no,
else?
no, they were very, very cooperative and
Okay, that's
encouraging.
great to
In
hear.
fact, to the extent where I was pursuing economics in college, and then my mother would tell me as to why did you choose such a tough course. It would have been if you've decided to take dance up, then perhaps you could have gone with an easier course load.
So that's really interesting. So like post college, how did your career then pan out? Were you always in India, or did you also go abroad to do to maybe affect dance in another country?
Actually, right after I finished my undergraduate degree, marriage took me to the US.
Okay, all right.
So, and that's where I started my school in 1992,
Okay.
Kalakriti, through which I trained several hundreds of students. And I had an agent who booked me for shows professionally at colleges, at universities, and festivals.
So I mean that's really interesting, because how does the American context mesh well with Bharatanatyam? How did you see any like challenges, or was it like people were more than happy to be like, hey, we want to know more?
I was there in the 90s when people really wanted to learn more. Perhaps now, there are a lot of established teachers and maybe the interest may be dwindling.
Yeah.
But at that point in the 90s, I felt that people were really interested because the first set of immigrants had gone perhaps sometimes in the 70s or so. So they had a lot of younger children, and the Indian diaspora was really interested in passing on this legacy to their kids.
That's interesting. So there's this classic thing, at least with kids abroad when they're trying to connect with their culture. Was there any kind of resistance that you faced, or let's say you have a kid who didn't want to learn dance? How would you get over that hump? How would you inspire a kid to say, hey, this is actually really important and really fun?
Well, that is a big challenge, and I find it's a bigger challenge now in Gurgaon too.
Okay.
So wherever you are training in classical dance, initially the child takes a while to settle down. Once the bug bites them, so to say, I think after about a year or two, they're really interested and they don't want to leave it. I have children who are studying overseas, who come back in the summer holidays, and they still continue to come for classes.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of inspiring them enough, and then perhaps making it child friendly by doing tales from Panchatantra or stories that they've grown up with, and enacting those stories through dance. Just making it interesting, making it fun. Everybody is into fitness. They're very conscious of how they look. So girls in particular take to that very well. So if you probably approach dance from that angle, it becomes very interesting.
So I think this is your teaching side, but now let's go to your performing side. How often do you manage to perform, and how does that experience tailor up with that of teaching?
Well, I think they're two different fields altogether. Performing on stage, of course, it's an unparalleled experience. And it's whether it's performing overseas or in India, it's just a high being on stage.
Yeah, because I can imagine just performing something that you've mastered over so many years, and you say you're also a choreographer. So if you had to say, would you rather still be on stage dancing, or would you don't mind doing the choreography bit, or if you always got the opportunity, you would like to be on stage?
Are you now asking about performing versus teaching? Perhaps?
Basically,
It's actually a tough call for me because I started teaching very young. In fact, initially I used to teach in Ganeshanatya under the supervision of Guru Saroja Vaidyanathanji in Delhi. And then when I started my school in the US, again, I was actively teaching. Now, back in Gurgaon for the last 16 years, my schools got hundreds of students, and my students are actively performing. So I don't know if I can choose one or the other because performance gives me a different kind of a high, whereas I have always enjoyed and loved teaching children and interacting with kids. It's just a joy being with them. So I don't think I would be able to choose one over the other.
That's really nice to hear. But do you ever encounter parents who might not want their kids to do dance? Anything you'd like to tell those kids that are trying to fight against their parents that this is what I want to do? Because I'm sure there are some out there.
Well, the reason the children come to me in the first place is because, you know, the parents are interested. So the love for the art form develops much later.
Okay.
Perhaps like early teens, you know, when they've already put in 3-4
The hard
years.
work and,
And usually what I tell the parents is, you know, if they've learned for a few years and they just don't want to do it, at that point it's time to perhaps drop it. There's no point forcing them to continue.
And the flip side, like let's say, 'cause I know you said that you didn't face any, like your parents were completely supportive, and I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
But you know, there's certain parents who aren't very supportive of kids becoming either, you know, Indian classical musicians. I mean, I have friends of mine who I know for a fact who were very good Odissi dancers for years and years, and their parents didn't really want them to do it like full time. So anything that if you were facing a situation like that, how would you, let's say, approach that conversation with the parents, saying that, you know what, no, let your kid do this?
Well, you know, I've been teaching for a long time now, for close to, I'm thinking 25 years. And so far, I've really not had a child taking it up professionally, though many of them perform. Perhaps the financial ramifications of choosing dance or music as a career, whether it be in India or overseas, has dissuaded many of them from actually taking it up as a career
Fair enough. No,
path. So
that,
that's what I feel. So I don't think there has been parental opposition as such. It's just that, you know, children, especially, I have primarily girl students. They all want to go in for, like, you know, basic education and then further education, master's degrees, whatever. So they themselves choose not to.
So I completely understand what you mean. I mean, you've seen so many students, you've taught so many students. But just to conclude, I would like to ask you, you know, if you'd like to change one thing about, you know, the landscape of classical dance in India, do you feel like its interest is waning, or do you feel like, in fact, in the era in the information era with the internet and stuff, that's actually even better because the outreach is that much more? What side of the debate do you lie on? Because I've met a lot of people who also said that, you know, that people aren't that interested in Indian classical dance anymore. So
that's the feeling I get, you know, because I am training young students, young adults, as well as very young children. I feel that interest is on the wane. Perhaps because of too much technology, there is just too many avenues available for entertainment today. You know, back when we were growing up, things were different. Even on television, there were not so many programs that were easily available. Now it's available on their laptop, phones, you know, so mobile apps, whatever, you name it, they have it. So dance, classical dance and music may be perceived as infra-day in that sense too. So unless we do something, perhaps set up schools, institutions in smaller cities and towns, so that, you know, classical dance and music is not limited to tier 1 cities, which is what is happening right now because of funding or because of performance opportunities. All the big teachers are based in bigger cities. So it's becoming very city-centric. So the rest of the population, you know, 80-90% of the population does not even have proper opportunities to learn, and perhaps it is those children who will carry this legacy forward.
Fair enough. Thank you so much on that note. Thank you for giving us an interview on the mobile app that are probably distracting tons of kids. But yeah, thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.